The late afternoon sun hit the private aviation terminal windows, making them look like sheets of gold. The place was quiet, the kind of quiet that hums with money and smooth operation. Dr. Alana Thorne walked through the automatic doors, her low heels clicking softly on the polished floor. She carried a single expensive-looking leather bag. Her mind was already halfway across the world, in a boardroom in Berlin. Today was the day. Years of her team's work on a new lightweight aircraft material were about to pay off in a major merger. This flight wasn't a luxury. It was a necessity. She moved with a calm focus, a woman used to navigating high-pressure situations. The air here smelled of expensive coffee and jet fuel. She could see, through a large glass door leading to the tarmac, the sleek private jet that would be her chariot. It gleamed under the sun, waiting. A few other passengers, all of them white and dressed in business casual, were milling about, sipping water, checking phones. They were waved through the tarmac door by a uniformed attendant without a second glance. Alana approached the same door. A security guard, a man with a tight haircut and a stern posture, shifted his weight. He moved his body to block her path. Not aggressively, but firmly, like a door swinging shut. "Help you?" he asked, but his tone said he already decided he wouldn't. "I'm on the 4 p.m. charter to Berlin," Alana said, her voice even and polite. She offered a slight, professional smile. "The guard. Let's call him the guard." His eyes did a quick, dismissive sweep. They took in her dark skin, her styled hair, her clothes sharp but understated. His brain, conditioned by prejudice, did the faulty math. A black woman, alone, at a private jet terminal. The equation didn't balance for him. He smirked, a small, ugly twist of his lips. "Service and delivery is around the back of the main building," he said, nodding his head toward the distant commercial airport. "You can't be through here." A flicker of familiar weariness passed behind Alana's eyes. It was the weariness of 1,000 small corrections, of constantly proving you belong in spaces you've earned the right to be in. She took a slow breath, keeping her composure. Losing her temper here would only feed his stereotype. "I understand, but I'm not with service. I'm a passenger. The name is Thorne, Dr. Alana Thorne. It should be on the manifest." The guard let out a short, humorless laugh. He glanced at her bag again. "Look, lady, this isn't a commercial flight. This is for charter clients. Real clients. You need to turn around and leave before I have to call someone." He placed a hand on the radio, clipped to his shoulder. The threat was clear. He was painting her as a trespasser, a problem to be removed. The other passengers nearby had stopped their quiet conversations. They were watching now, their faces a mix of curiosity and mild discomfort. But none of them spoke up. One man looked away, suddenly very interested in his phone screen. Alana felt a cold anger begin to mix with the weariness. This was more than a nuisance. It was an active blockage. Her career, a summit of academic degrees, patented inventions, and boardroom respect, was being reduced to nothing by this man's ignorance. Berlin, the merger, her team's future, it was all on the other side of that door. "Please," she said, her voice hardening just a degree. "Check your list. Call your supervisor. Do your job. Verify my identity." But the guard was committed now. Backing down would mean admitting he was wrong, and his prejudice had already written the story. He shook his head. "My job is to keep people like you from causing a scene. Now, I won't ask again. Leave the premises, or security will escort you out." He puffed out his chest a little, believing completely in his own authority. In his mind, he was protecting the sanctity of the wealthy, white space he guarded. He saw a woman who didn't fit his narrow picture of success, and decided, with absolute certainty, that she was faking it. He didn't see the doctorate, the patents, the CEO, who was waiting for her in Germany. He only saw color and a narrative he'd been taught to believe. Alana stood very still. The hum of the air conditioning seemed to grow louder. The curious stares of the other passengers felt like pinpricks on her skin. She looked past the guard, through the glass, at the jet. It was so close. A symbol of everything she had achieved, now being held just out of reach by a man who refused to see her. For a long moment, she said nothing. She just looked at him, and in her eyes, the weariness was gone, replaced by a sharp, calculating clarity. The problem had changed. It was no longer about convincing him. He was a locked door. She needed a different key. The clock was ticking, and the polite approach had crashed and burned. It was time for a different strategy, one that would bypass him completely. A quiet, powerful resolve settled over her. The game was about to change, and he didn't even know he was playing. Up in the quiet, glass-walled office that overlooked the terminal floor, a man was watching. He had been there for about 20 minutes, sipping bad coffee from a paper cup. This was the CEO of the private jet company. He liked to make surprise visits to see how things really worked when no one was expecting the boss. Today, he was focusing on the customer flow at the tarmac door, the first and last impression for his high-paying clients. From his high-up view, everything looked smooth, like a silent, expensive ballet. People glided in, were checked, and glided out to their planes. He made a mental note to compliment the ground staff. Then, his eyes caught a snag in the smooth movement. Down by the door, a security guard was standing very stiffly, talking to a woman. The CEO leaned forward a little, squinting. The woman was calm, but the guard's posture was all wrong. It was rigid, confrontational. He was blocking her, not assisting her. The CEO felt a first slight itch of annoyance. Don't cause a scene, he thought. Just check the list and let her through. He assumed it was a simple mismatch, a name spelled wrong on the manifest. Something easily fixed. Then he saw the guard shake his head. He saw the man's hand go up, not to open the door, but to rest on his radio. The CEO's annoyance sharpened into concern. This wasn't a discussion anymore. It was a blockade. Who was this woman? He watched as other passengers, looking uncomfortable, slipped past the scene and out to the tarmac. The guard wasn't stopping them. He was only stopping her. The CEO's eyes narrowed, studying the woman more closely. She was dressed professionally, carrying a single bag of fine leather. She stood with a stillness that spoke of patience, but it was the patience of a cliff face, not a doormat. There was something about her, a familiar sharpness in her profile. His brain started to scramble, trying to place her, and then it hit him. Like a cold slap got the email from his most important client in Europe, the one he'd personally reviewed and approved just 2 days ago. Our partner, Dr. Name Redacted, lead architect of the Vertex material, will be flying on leg number. The client had stressed this was a pivotal person. The future of a multi-million-dollar deal rested on her shoulders. Her company wasn't just renting a jet. They were pioneering the tech that might one day build better ones. That was her. The woman being told to go to the service entrance was Dr. Alana Thorne. A jolt of pure, undiluted horror shot through the CEO's body. His coffee cup crumpled slightly in his grip, the lukewarm liquid sloshing. This wasn't just bad service. This was a catastrophe playing out in real time. His employee, wearing his company's uniform, was actively, publicly, humiliating one of the most important passengers they would have all year. And not just humiliating, turning her away based on what looked from this terrifying height. Exactly like what it was, blatant racism. He saw her mouth the words, "Check the manifest." He saw the guard smirk and shake his head again. The CEO's blood seemed to roar in his ears. He was frozen for a second, caught between disbelief and a rising tide of panic. His company prided itself on discretion, on flawless, invisible service. This was the opposite. This was a loud, ugly scandal waiting to explode, that he dropped the coffee cup into a trash bin, not caring where it landed. He had to get down there. Now. He burst out of the office door and into the hallway, moving toward the stairs. His dress shoes slapped hard against the tile. Every second was a grain of sand falling through an hourglass. He could fire the guard on the spot. He could apologize profusely. He could offer a free flight for life. But none of that would erase the fact that it had happened. That she had been made to feel like an intruder in a space she had paid a small fortune to use. As he took the stairs 2 at a time, his mind raced with awful possibilities. The bad review. The social media post. The call from his furious European client. The lawsuit. The story in the news. CEO watches as guard profiles VIP passenger. The utter ruin of his reputation. Built over 20 years. Crumbling because of one man's stupid, hateful assumption. He reached the bottom of the stairs and pushed through a heavy door into the back of the terminal lobby. He was maybe 50 feet away. He could see the back of the guard's head, the set of his stubborn shoulders. He could see Dr. Thorne's face now, calm, with a storm gathering in her eyes. He opened his mouth to shout, to call the guard off, but he was too late. He watched, helpless, as Dr. Thorne's expression shifted. The patience was gone, replaced by something else, a cool, decisive resolve. She wasn't looking at the guard anymore. She was looking through him. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. This wasn't a plea. This was a pivot. She was moving the fight to a battlefield where the guard didn't matter at all. The CEO stopped in his tracks, his breath coming in short gasps. He didn't understand what she was doing, but he knew the power had just left his hands. He was no longer rushing to fix the situation. He was now just a spectator to its consequences. The woman had taken control without raising her voice, and the terrifying part was he had no idea what she was about to do. He stood there, hidden by a pillar, his heart hammering against his ribs, forced to watch the disaster his company had created unfold to its conclusion. The silence around them felt heavy, like the air before a storm. The guard's smirk was still fixed on his face, a mask of false authority. He thought his hand on the radio was the ultimate power move. He was waiting for her to break, to cry, to shout, or to slink away and defeat any of those would have fit the story in his head. But Alana Thorne did none of those things. The weariness she felt was now a cold, hard crystal in her chest. Arguing with this man was like talking to a brick wall. You couldn't use reason because he wasn't listening. He was just waiting for you to confirm his bias. So she decided to stop talking to the wall. She would go over it, straight to the architect of the building. With a calm that seemed to slow down time itself, she unzipped a small compartment on her leather bag. She pulled out her phone. Her movements were deliberate, not rushed. She tapped the screen a few times, her thumb finding the right app, the right contact. This wasn't a random call. This was a strategic launch. She selected a name from her recent calls. The contact was simply labeled Klaus Merlin. She switched the call to video and held the phone up, waiting. The guard watched, his confusion beginning to crack through his smugness. What was this? Who was she calling? His brain couldn't process it. He expected fear, not a quiet, focused action. The call connected after one ring. The face that filled Alana's screen was that of an older man in his 60s, with sharp blue eyes and a head of close-cropped silver hair. He was sitting in what looked like a sleek, modern office, a wall of glass behind him showing a distant city skyline. It was early evening in Germany. "Alana," the man said, his voice carrying a slight German accent, crisp and clear through the speaker. "You are at the airport? I was just reviewing the final numbers." His expression was one of pleasant expectation. "Klaus," Alana said. Her voice was flat, a neutral reporting tone. There was no anger in it, no performative distress. She was simply stating facts to a colleague. "I am at the airport. There is a small delay. There seems to be a problem with the charter service you arranged." On the screen, Klaus Richter's eyebrows drew together slightly. "A problem? What sort of problem? The plane is there, yes?" "The plane is here," Alana confirmed. She slowly turned the phone in her hand. She panned the camera, showing the plush terminal lobby, the other passengers who were now staring openly, and finally, she let the lens settle on the security guard. She held it there for a good 3 seconds, capturing his uniform, his name tag, his entire bewildered and now slightly worried face. "The security official here," Alana continued, turning the phone back to herself, "believes I do not belong on the flight. He has suggested I use the service entrance and is threatening to have me removed. He has not checked the manifest. He is, as you can see, very certain." She delivered the information cleanly, without embellishment. The power of it was in its simplicity. She wasn't complaining to a friend. She was briefing a partner on a critical path obstruction. The change in Klaus Richter's face was instantaneous and total. The pleasant expectation vanished, replaced by a frosty, furious calm. His jaw tightened. His eyes, fixed on his screen, looked past Ilana and seemed to bore directly into the guard 1,000 miles away. The temperature in his Berlin office seemed to drop 10 degrees. He did what? Richter's voice was now low, a dangerous rumble. "Give the phone to this man now." 4 words. A direct command. Alana didn't smile. She didn't glare at the guard. She simply extended her arm, offering the phone to him. "He would like to speak with you." The guard's face had gone from confused to pale. The name Klaus meant nothing to him but the authority in that voice, the cut of the man's suit, the sheer, icy rage radiating from the tiny screen. It all screamed power. Real power. The kind he didn't understand, but instinctively feared. His hand, which had been resting on his radio, dropped to his side. Hesitantly, like he was being handed a live snake, he took the phone. He fumbled, nearly dropping it, then held it up to his ear and eye. "Hello?" What followed was a conversation the guard would have nightmares about for years. He didn't say a single other word. He just listened. His eyes widened. His mouth went slack. He began to nod, frantic little bobs of his head. "Yes, sir," he stammered, his voice a thin whisper. "No, sir, I didn't." "Yes, sir, immediately, of course." "I understand." 30 seconds. That was all it took. 30 seconds to dismantle his entire world. The color drained completely from his face, leaving a sickly grayish tone. His shoulders, which had been squared with false importance, slumped inward. He looked like a balloon with all the air let out. With trembling hands, he gave the phone back to Alana. He couldn't even look at her. His eyes were fixed on the floor. The radio on his shoulder, his symbol of power, now felt like a dead weight. Alana took the phone and brought it back to her ear. "Klaus? The plane will wait for you as long as you need, Alana," Richter said, his voice still tight with anger, but softening for her. "My deepest apologies. This is an unacceptable disgrace. I will be making my own call to that company. You will not be disturbed again. Thank you, Klaus. See you soon." She ended the call and placed the phone back in her bag. She said nothing to the guard. She just looked at him, waiting. The silence was louder than any shouting. The guard finally found his voice, a broken, mangled thing. I am so sorry, ma'am. Please, right this way. Your flight, it's... Please. He gestured weakly toward the tarmac door, his arm shaking. He was a gate that had been completely blown off its hinges. All that was left was the empty space where he used to stand. The guard's ragged apology hung in the air, useless as a torn piece of paper. Alana didn't acknowledge it. Her focus was already past him, on the jet waiting outside. But before she could take a step, another man arrived, rushing up beside them. He was older, dressed in an expensive but rumpled suit, and he was breathing hard, like he'd been running. This was the CEO. His face was flushed with panic and effort. He looked from the guard's shattered expression to Alana's composed one, and the full picture confirmed his worst fear from upstairs. Double quotes, Dr. Thorne, he said, his voice thick with genuine distress. He didn't offer a hand. It didn't feel appropriate. He just placed his own hands together, almost in a pleading gesture. My name is Robert Vance. I am the owner of this company. I saw everything from the office. There are no words for how sorry I am. This is a profound failure. On my company, on our training, on me. Alana turned her gaze to him. She gave a small, slow nod. It wasn't acceptance of his apology, just an acknowledgement that she had heard him. Vance then wheeled on the guard. All the panic in his face hardened into a cold, clean anger. You, he said, the word sharp as a slap. What you just did. It's more than a mistake. It is a violation of every standard we pretend to have. You are terminated. As of this second, do not touch your radio. Do not go to the locker room. You will wait right here, and a security officer will escort you from the building. The guard opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His eyes were glassy with shock. The finality in his boss's voice was absolute. One stupid, hateful assumption had just cost him his job, his paycheck, his dignity, all in the space of 2 minutes. Alana listened. She watched the guard shrink further into himself. She saw the other passengers pretending not to stare, but their ears were practically turned toward the scene. This public firing was Vance's attempt at damage control, a show of force to prove he was on the right side. God, as the CEO motioned for another uniformed man to come over, Alana finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the tension like clear water. Mr. Vance. He turned back to her immediately, his expression eager to please, to fix. Yes, Dr. Thorne? Anything. Well, I understand the gesture, she said, nodding toward the stunned guard. Terminating him is your decision. A reactive one. It solves your immediate feeling of anger. It does very little for the next person like me who walks through that door. Vance blinked. He had expected her to be satisfied, or at least placated, by the firing. He hadn't expected. Commentary. Alana continued, her tone analytical, as if she were pointing out a flaw in an engineering schematic. If you only remove this one man, you are treating a symptom, not the sickness. You are saying the problem was him, a bad apple. It lets your company, your system, your leadership off the hook. It happens again. Maybe not here, maybe at another one of your terminals. But it happens. The CEO stood very still. The script he had in his head was falling apart. She wasn't following it. My concern, Alana said, is systemic. So here's what I suggest. A real solution, not just a performance. She looked directly at the guard, who flinched under her gaze. His exit interview should not be a 5-minute formality. It should be a 2-hour recorded session. He should be asked, in detail, why he did what he did, what he saw, what he assumed, and what he thought would happen. That recording should be the first lesson in a mandatory, company-wide retraining program. A program you don't just buy, but that you and every one of your managers sit through first. You need to understand the cost. Not the cost to your reputation, she said, glancing at his worried face, but the human cost. The cost to the person standing where I'm standing. She let that sink in. The terminal was silent, except for the distant hum of an airplane. Invest in that, she said finally. Not in firing one man to make yourself feel better. Invest in fixing what created him in the first place. Robert Vance felt his face grow warm with a different kind of heat now. It wasn't panic, but shame and a dawning, reluctant respect. She had taken his grand gesture of firing and shown him how small it really was. She had presented a blueprint for actual change, and it was humbling. He was the CEO, but in this moment, she was the one leading. He swallowed hard and nodded, a deep, serious nod. You are absolutely right. That is what we will do. I will see to it personally. He meant it. Then he straightened his suit jacket, not as a power move, but as a form of respect. Please, Dr. Thorne, allow me to personally escort you to your aircraft. Your time has been wasted enough. This time, Alana gave a small, definitive nod of acceptance. She fell into step beside him, not behind him. He held the heavy door to the tarmac open for her, and she walked through, leaving the hushed terminal and the broken guard behind Dot as the bright sunlight and the roar of jet engines hit them. Vance was not walking a VIP to her plane. He was walking alongside a woman who had just given him a masterclass in power. Real power wasn't in the phone call to a billionaire, though that was impressive. Real power was in the clarity to see beyond the easy fix, to demand something harder and better. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that he would be thinking about this walk, and her words, for a very long time. The sunlight on the tarmac was a brilliant, harsh white, a world away from the soft, quiet gloom of the terminal. The roar of a jet engine starting up nearby was a physical thing, a vibration in the chest. Alana Thorne walked beside the CEO, her steps even and sure on the hot concrete. The fancy leather of her bag felt cool against her fingers. She didn't look back at the building, at the scene left behind. Her eyes were on the aircraft ahead, a beautiful, slender machine that was her way forward. For Robert Vance, the walk was different. The noise and the wind were a relief, washing away some of the stifling shame from inside. But his mind was buzzing, replaying her words. Invest in fixing what created him. He had built this company from nothing, prided himself on its smooth service. Now, a 10-minute encounter had shown him a deep crack in his own foundation. He stole a glance at the woman beside him. She wasn't gloating. She wasn't even looking at him. She was just moving forward. It was the most powerful silence he had ever experienced. They reached the bottom of the air stairs. A flight attendant in a crisp uniform stood at the top, smiling warmly, ready to welcome the final passenger. Alana paused. She turned, not to Vance, but to look back at the terminal wall. From here, it was just a windowless expanse of gray. Somewhere behind it, a man was having the worst day of his life, losing his job. She didn't feel happy about it. She felt a tired kind of sadness. This was a battle won, a point made, but she knew the war was so much bigger. It was in a million small moments, in looks and assumptions and silences. Today was just one. She let out a small breath, a quiet sigh that was lost in the jet wash. Then she turned and began to climb the stairs. Inside the cabin, it was another universe. Cool, quiet, smelling of lemon polish and clean leather. The other passengers were already settled in plush seats. They had seen what happened, or at least the end of it. As Alana entered, their eyes flicked toward her, then quickly away. One man became intensely interested in the pattern on his seatbelt. A woman studied the safety card, as if it held the secrets of the universe. There was a thick layer of awkwardness in the air, the discomfort of people who had witnessed a wrong and done nothing. They had been content to be waved through while she was stopped. Now they had to share this small, luxurious space with the person they had silently judged. Alana felt their discomfort, and a small, cold part of her was glad for it. Let them sit with it. She took her seat, a window seat near the front. She stowed her bag with efficient movements. Vance hesitated in the doorway of the jet, filling out the frame. "Dr. Thorne, is there anything else I can do? Anything at all before you depart?" His voice was almost humble. "Ensuring we depart on time would be ideal," she said, her tone polite but final. The conversation for her was over, of course, immediately. He nodded to the head flight attendant and stepped back, ducking out of the cabin. The door hissed shut and was locked with a solid, final thunk dot as the jet began to taxi. Vance stood on the hot tarmac, watching it roll away. He felt strangely empty. The crisis was over. The VIP was on her way, but he didn't feel like he'd fixed anything. He felt like he'd been given a homework assignment by a brilliant, stern teacher. He pulled his phone from his pocket. He didn't call human resources. Instead, he opened his notes app and began typing, his thumbs moving quickly. Asterisk, mandatory retraining start with leadership team. Use real incident. Recorded interview with terminated guard as core case study. Program on unconscious bias and customer service protocol. Budget reallocation required. Personal apology to Dr. Thorne's firm. Asterisk, it was a start. Meanwhile, at 30,000 feet, the plane leveled off. The seatbelt sign chimed off. The other passengers relaxed into their magazines and their drinks, the awkwardness slowly fading. Alana looked out the window at the endless fields of clouds below, glowing in the late afternoon sun. It was peaceful. The head flight attendant approached her. "Dr. Thorne, the gentleman in the suit who escorted you, he asked that we give you this." She handed Alana a single heavy-stock business card. It was Robert Vance's. On the back, written in a hurried pen, was a note. Asterisk, you are right. I am listening. Would you consider a consulting call when you return? To help design the solution. No obligation. RV. Asterisk. Alana turned the card over in her fingers. She didn't smile, but a slight softening touched her eyes. This was the real victory. Not the fear, not the firing, but the willingness to learn. It was a small opening. She placed the card in the seat-back pocket in front of her. She would think about it later. For now, she had a merger to secure, a deal that would fund her team's research for years. The man who had tried to block her from this plane was already a distant memory, a minor obstacle in her rearview mirror. The flight attendant returned. "Can I get you anything to drink, doctor? We have champagne, if you'd like to celebrate." Alana looked up. "Just water, thank you. I have work to do." She pulled a slim tablet from her bag, the screen lighting up with charts and proposal documents. As the jet soared east, chasing the sun, the hierarchy in the cabin was clear to everyone. The woman who had almost been barred from boarding was now the unquestionable center of gravity. Her power wasn't loud or boastful. It was in her calm, in her focus, in her ability to turn an ugly scene into a lesson and then simply move on to her real work. She hadn't just boarded the plane. She had, in every way that mattered, taken command of it. And the journey ahead for her was just beginning.